Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to the welcome to the Board of Commissioners work session, the regularly scheduled work session for Monday, March 7th, 2022 at 7:18 p.m. We apologize for the technical delay for anybody watching on television. Mr. Manager, would you call the roll?
Commissioner D'Amelio.
Here.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Here.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Here.
Commissioner Cavender.
Here.
Commissioner Quinn.
Here.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Wexler.
Here.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Here.
Commissioner Holmes.
Here. Chief? Actually, I would ask that everybody remain standing after the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
I would just ask that everybody remain standing and just enjoy a moment of silence for our former police commissioner, Carmen Pettin. Thank you. I just wanted, if I could, to reflect a little bit on Chief Pettin. He's a husband, a father, a decorated veteran, a sheriff, a policeman, and finally a chief of police for Plymouth Township and then here in Haverford Township from 2008 to 2016. All of us in Haverford Township enjoyed the benefit of Chief Pettin's leadership and example, and several of us on the board had the privilege to work closely alongside this fine man. Chief Pettin passed away just 2 weeks ago. In my 16 years on this board, I have watched our police department mature into the envy of every municipality in Pennsylvania. And Chief Pettin's stewardship, leadership, patience, diligence, and example played a major contributing role in that. A gentleman in the truest sense of the word, and as I heard him described so often by the men and women of the force that loved him so, he was a cop's cop. I don't think the chief would mind if I finished my words with the words of his grandchildren, who gave us a little glimpse into his heart at his funeral. They wrote, "Someone with silver in his hair and gold in his heart, the one who unconditionally loves you beyond words, a provider, friend, protector, and hero. He is a great storyteller, mischief maker, keeper of secrets, biggest hug giver. He is loving, caring, and supportive, the best person in the whole world. Rest in peace, Carmen Pettin." I believe two of my colleagues who worked directly with Chief Pettin as the president of the board and the head of the police department also wanted to say something.
I'll go first. I'll reiterate. Chief Pettin came to us at a time when we needed him. He was what I'll call, what everything I think all of us would hope to say, he was just a good guy all around. He came to us when we needed him. He changed the face of the leadership in our department. We had a great department. He made it better. He was a great family man. My condolences to his wife. I saw at the funeral the other day, and his family and his son. Just a good man. When he came here, we needed him. We needed his leadership. I think he made us a better place. I know he made us a better police department, as Chief Viola and Deputy Chief Hagan can attest to. And we're a better township because of him. So rest in peace, Mr. Chief Pettin.
Chief Pettin served with distinction. From the minute he became the chief in this township, he made improvements. His strong morals and honesty reinforced the police department's mission and this community's expectation of professional policing. He was clearly a dedicated police officer. And one of the things that really impressed me were his communication skills. He was calm every time he spoke to a resident. He gave them time, he gave them respect, he listened, and he took their concerns and made improvements. And he made this community a lot better. So my condolences to the police department, to you, John. I know you were close with him and
Yes.
Served under him, and just a real loss for this township and for Lower Merion where he served. It was Lower Merion, right? No, Plymouth Township, I'm
Plymouth
sorry,
Township.
Plymouth. So, thank you.
Commissioner, if I could just have a couple of words?
Yes, please.
Thank you. We got to spend time with Chief Pettin in his final days, and when you were talking to the man, and he joked one day to us, he said, "I'm having a viewing and I'm still alive," and that's the way he was. But we had a lot of good laughs in that few weeks that he was at home, waiting for his eternal rest. But just Karma was a true friend. He was a mentor. He taught us more, Joe and I, in the short time he was here, in the many years I've been in this township and this police department. And I carried that on today. And I think about him every time I make a decision. How would Carmen handle it? So I miss him dearly, but I know he's in a better place now. So thank you. Thank you for your words. I appreciate that. And I'll make sure Mrs. Pettin, Marion sees this part of the meeting.
Finally, as one last gesture of respect. Thank you, Chief. If I could ask for one more moment, if everybody could rise. This is a moment of silence for the victims of the senseless violence and aggression in the Ukraine right now. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a presentation by the Historical Commission providing the two-year report. Yes,
Yes.
good evening.
Thank you. The 2021 list on the far right is actually 2022, and there is no 2021 on the screen. But this is just really showing the change in members on the commission. Right now, as of January, I'm the chair. Stacy Maddox, the former chair, is the vice chair. She and I are just switching positions. Jack Garrett, who is our planning commission liaison, has taken over as secretary, and you can see the rest of our group there. And Stephen Pierce is a new member as of January. Next, thanks. So 2019 projects, pretty light agenda. You can probably just go to the next one. I'll just show you a couple of them. So 311, this is the second bump. It's not 311 Oxford, it's 311 Lenox. I don't know how that happened. They proposed a rear addition, which you see in progress here, and a rear deck, which we approved. Obviously, they're on the back of the house, so not really visible from the public way. Gonna keep me moving.
I saw you look at me. I thought you were ready.
Okay. That's all right. 1300 Bonnier Terrace. This was an interesting one. This is a circa 1807 barn related to the John Leadham House. It was adapted around 1915 as a residence, which it is today. They applied for several changes, which you can see here, but the most interesting one being a proposed solar array on the roof. This was the first solar array project that we've reviewed, and it was an interesting one because the solar panels had to go for, technical reasons on the most visible side of the property, which is something that we try to avoid. But I think we'll probably have to deal with more of these as time goes on, and obviously work with homeowners to do the best we can. 2020 project reviews, 3 projects. The first one, you can go ahead, Dave, thank you, was the Brick and Brew at 2931 East Eagle Road. This is a row that we probably all pass very often. It's an early 20th century example of a largely intact commercial row. I was looking at this tonight. So the style is Mission Revival in the survey, but it's actually kind of a mix of Mission Revival with Colonial Revival detailing, which you can see in those rounded doorway openings, especially on the lower, the drawing on the bottom of the screen. So this row was developed to serve surrounding residential areas, South Ardmore, Oakmont, and it was also adjacent to the Oakmont station of the Ardmore and Lanark Street Railway. So these commercial areas, they rise up for a reason, and it's to serve the residential areas. 3 storefronts along that block, go back if you would, have been preserved. Wiedenmann was the first one. And we had several meetings with Brick and Brew representatives. They were looking for something not quite in keeping with the block, but we were able to successfully come to an agreement where, if you look at the bottom of the screen, the right side is a fairly good restoration, so kind of keeping the integrity of that commercial block, but we lost the original entrance for their new entrance on the left. So it was a compromise, but I think a good one. Next. This is 109 Colfax Road. This is a good example of the prominent classical revival style found in Oakmont. This one was built about 1920. And you can see here that they added a 3rd story. They basically dormered up from this Dutch gable. Next. 224 Cherry Lane. This is an interesting one. It's a deceptively early house, circa 1820. It was the farmhouse of Mary Kelly Ott and her husband Jack Ott, and Mary Kelly's father, Dennis Kelly, was a miller. He operated cotton and woolen mills on Cobb's Creek, and he also, I actually didn't know this until tonight, founded St. Denis Roman Catholic Church, so I thought that was interesting. I don't know if there was a St. Denis before St. Denis Roman Catholic Church. So other activities of the commission. Yeah, next one is fine. Thank you. 1470 Fairview Road, this building was, its imminent demolition was brought to our attention by the Delaware County Planning Commission. It's built circa 1915, believed to be one of the last early 20th century bungalows in this neighborhood. And you can just see the form of the building on the top right. But the photograph on the bottom right really shows what makes this a bungalow. These overhanging eaves, the exposed rafter ends. You can see the detail of the cedar shingles in the top left of that photograph where they kick out above the the line marking the top of the 1st story, and also the detailing of the window trim. Simple, but a lot of character to it. We also think that the barn was probably one of the last barns in the township. This is a building type that we continually lose. They are often neglected, and we've lost others simply due to essentially demolition by neglect, which is a very difficult thing for the township to regulate, but creates a somewhat unfortunate circumstance. I'm just on the bottom left, you can see, I can't point out anything. But if you look under that line of red where the wood beneath is exposed, you can see that there are 4 boards, and at the edge of each board is kind of, you can see there's a line. And what that line is indicating the batten, which I'm showing on the top right, just what an example of it is. A board and batten was very typical type of construction in the Gothic Revival period, but typically for outbuildings, because it was very easy to construct, right? You just, boards go vertically and you put another board, often a decorative one, as you can see on the bottom right there. That's at Aubrey Arboretum, one of their outbuildings. So these board and batten constructions were relatively cheap to build, but also very typical of the early period. So it was a very interesting site. So I went out and photographed it and passed those photographs on to the Historical Society as a record of the buildings before they were demolished. Next. The Ardmore Avenue Bridge. I thought everybody might want to remember what it used to look like when we couldn't get through there, and now we can. the Historical Commission, we were granting consulting party status with the Department of Transportation in 2018. And it just happens that I was the representative that attended the meetings and worked with them on the design of the bridge. And of course, that project has now been completed. Next. Certified local government. This is a program of the State Historic Preservation Office. It enables the township to apply for grant funding. The survey project that we did that you reviewed earlier, a couple of months ago, was possible through a grant through the Certified Local Government Program. We also get free technical assistance. It's a real help to us, and whether you remembered it or not, you approved our reapplication as a CLG in 2019. You can't go back and change your mind, so I just wanted to say thank you. Wanted to give Kathy Case, one of our members who's our liaison with the Historical Society. She has been working for the last couple of years organizing the Historical Society's photographs, of which there are many that have been, you know, just as typical of many historical societies, right, just put in boxes in a closet somewhere. And Kathy has been going through, archiving them, identifying them, trying to identify where they come from. And it's a huge project that she's still working on. But she received an award from the Delaware County Council Historic Preservation Commission. So kudos to her. We continue to provide newsletters for the Board of Commissioner newsletter. We continue to provide articles for the newsletter. And we have attended the Historical Society's Heritage Festival. We always have a table there to try and help people be aware of the historic resources in the township and the work of the commission. Our last one was in 2019, and we just found out that they intend to have another one this year. So we'll again have a table. That'll be in June, I think the first Sunday. Next. Just some things that we've been talking about. One thing that's come up is a historic plaque program. This is something that a lot of townships around us actually have. That's an example you can see at the top right, Tredyffrin Township. Essentially, people who are listed in the Historic Resource Survey would be able to apply for a plaque. They would apply through the Historical Commission, just a brief form, and they would pay for the plaque, but we would arrange for them to have it so that we would have some uniformity, and so that plaques would be a benefit of being listed in the survey. So this is just to let you know, just to let you know what we're kind of talking about at our meetings, and we intend to present you with something a little bit more concrete, hopefully soon. Next. And we're also talking about the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission Historic Marker Program. And what we're essentially doing with these two discussions is trying to find ways to recognize historic resources in the township beyond being listed in the Historic Resource Survey. These blue state markers, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, they are, I think there may be 3 or 4 in the township, not too many. It's a competitive program administered by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, so you have to apply, and I think it's once a year that they review applications. The state will pay for the marker. The applicant then pays to have it installed, which is a foundation, and actually I think they even provide the pipe, and so you just have to provide the foundation, and you have to get permission to install it on a roadway. So depending on who owns the roadway. So we thought this is possibly another way to engage residents in the township's history. And I think that's it, just a quick update. So thank you so much for your time this evening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Thank you both and all of your committee.
Thanks.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just wanted to say thank you, Susanna, and I think that's a great idea, the plans to apply for the historical marker certification and the other one. What's the other one? The plaque?
Right, the plaque is something that we would actually administer. That would be through the township. And I think that the way we understand it right now, the way we've thought about it, is the township would really just be the pass-through, because we would have to have somebody to kind of accept the money and we would order the plaque and then give it to the residents. So there would be no money, but there might be some administrative support that we would need to do that. Yeah, the blue markers, that's a separate,
Yeah.
separate thing.
Both
Yeah,
great ideas, and thank you for bringing them forward.
thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks again for your time this night.
You. Next on the agenda is a discussion addressing commissioners' quorum for our township meetings, and a question that was raised by one of our co-commissioners about the ability to participate virtually. I understand we got some advice from our township solicitor. Sorry about that. We got some advice from our township solicitor about this issue. And does anybody want to discuss it? As I understand, it is legal for members of the board to attend this meeting and vote virtually. We have to have a quorum in place at all times, so we would always have to have 5 commissioners here. I think we as a board, if we were to choose to create a policy for this, we would just need to make sure that we set up proper administrative procedures that would prevent, 7 of us from saying, I thought it was my week to stay home. So, yes, go ahead.
Could there be like rules, like how to be excused, like have to come to you or come to John or Dave to be excused from, because you can't just say like, I'm late from work or something, I'm gonna run home, because that's an excuse that we all have, I'm sure, at some points. But I believe we have to be strict about this in our rules and not just saying, I just want to sit or to sit at home and.
I have I suspect that is strictly up to us as a body to make it as strict. We can't make it any more relaxed than the law requires, but we can, we could certainly make it stricter. We could confine absences, unexpected absences to certain criteria. And of course, we're not sure about any other outbreaks of any additional variants of
Of course, those are circumstances that we can't or control, but so those would be things that we would obviously.
Yeah, I guess I would ask my co-commissioners in this discussion whether there is an appetite to actually memorialize this and create a policy and make it have it for township law.
Yeah, my concern was just it was arbitrary before, that there had been a commissioner before we were on the board who requested, he was going to be away, he wanted to participate, I think by phone at that point, and the board said, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Subsequent to that, even since the emergency order has been lifted, we've had commissioners who have attended by Zoom, which is for various reasons. So it would seem it would be better to put this into some ordinance or to remove the arbitrariness of the decision, not make it up to 5 members of the board saying, no, you can't do that. It seems like we should allow it.
I agree with you. And I can recall times where I couldn't be here, but I could call into an executive session because we're just back there talking on the phone, but there was no scenario where, and no option. I mean, it just wasn't even considered. But perhaps we ask our solicitor to investigate any of our neighboring townships who might have articulated a policy or drafted an ordinance that addresses this and share it with us.
I'm happy to look into to see if someone has an official policy. I know there are multiple municipalities that readily provide for what's called the hybrid model, obviously having the physical quorum present. But if someone says, I can't be here tonight, or I'm not going to be able to make it, and that municipality also has the technological capabilities of doing so, they have it available for a person to participate through virtual means.
And if I understand correctly, the township needs to have the means for for elected officials to participate virtually, but is there any obligation on the township to provide for citizens participating virtually?
Not legally, no. It's, the only thing that's required under the Sunshine Act is that a place is provided for citizens to come in to make their comments or to ask questions, but there isn't a requirement, even if there is the ability to have citizens virtually. There's no legal requirement that you have to leave it open to participate virtually, albeit that they should be then coming into the meeting in person. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but no obligation to do it.
Does anybody else have any other comments?
Mr. President, I actually have been trying to explore this issue about providing some kind of virtual option for citizen participation. We're still working through that just to make sure that, one, there's security around that. We've seen that some of our local, I think it was our school board got hacked at one point, and so we want to make sure that whatever we do, that it's secure. And then two is just making sure, as we've seen, there are technological issues sometimes, and we want to make sure that whatever we do, we make it so that if we're allowing them to participate virtually, that we can do so with some ease. But I do think it's worth pursuing and something I'm interested in pursuing because, there's something that the pandemic taught us, which is that by having virtual options, more people are able to participate. So if you think about people with disabilities who might not be able to make it here, if you think about the working parent or any working person who may not just be able to come here and participate and make a comment because they don't have the wherewithal to get here. And our senior citizens, making sure that they have that option. So this is something that I'm definitely interested in pursuing further, but we want to make sure that we do it right. So that said, going back to the previous issue, I do think it's worth pursuing a policy, making it that we have standards for who can participate virtually from the Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
I'll agree. I think if we're allowed to participate remotely, then we owe it to the public to have the same ability that we would have. It would only seem fair to me to do that. But I think that the reasons for us not being here, we're elected and we've obligated ourselves to be here. So I think issues of health, maybe business travel, and other business concerns as opposed to more vacation type issues, I think that we're required to be here. We've obligated ourselves when we've put ourselves up for election and accepted the position to be here. But there are reasons that you can't, whether your personal job, your income related job prohibits you from being here if you have to travel, or in my case, I'll be in the hospital next month or hopefully I'll be home. But if they keep me 2 days, I won't be there. So for reasons of health, hospitalization, or issue. But I do agree with what Judy said. The other option, in addition to the seniors, it allows our younger people to participate and see it as well. We have active political groups at our high school, and I think it's great that they could open up and participate with us. The more people we get to participate, the better off we are as a township, is my feeling. So, but if we're allowed to participate remotely, then I think we owe it to our citizens that if for good reasons they want to participate remotely, we should honor that as well. So that's all I have to say, sir.
Now, as I understand, it's significantly easier for us to manage security for purposes of just 2 or 3 commissioners or staff members, but 53,000 people in the township, having it available to everybody yet secure is no average feat. So to the extent that anybody has any information on that, or if our solicitor has any experience or sees any other township that has done this in a way that's secure but still, manageable and user-friendly.
What a lot of municipalities do is to not provide the link until 24 hours or so before the meeting. Let the public know that there will be a link, but not provide that link until closer to the meeting time to avoid the Zoom bombing, where people will get it weeks ahead of time. They have it saved and ready to go, and then they come in and do something inappropriate. But having that link, again, not available until right before the meeting, does cut down on that. You really have to go out of your way to want to do it at that point in time. Of course, again, you can make the public aware that that link will be available where you can find it, but just not have it ready to be saved ahead of time.
Well, what's the chance we could have in April, we could be looking at a draft policy? Is that possible?
I believe it'd be possible. One of the things I would probably work from is the Pennsylvania Borough Code. And I referenced some of the examples in the Borough Code last time. They have limited reasons why, if you were in a borough, that you could use telecommunications. Might be a good place to start. It's somewhat broad. It would be something that I would be able to put something with every possible excuse under the sun that seems reasonable, and then council can cut them back if you wanted to refer it to a committee for further initial review of reasons. I don't have the wherewithal for the technological aspects, so it might be worth having someone from township staff to talk about what they're able to accommodate for Zoom for the broader public's participation. As far as the policies, we can put that in place.
Great. Let's try to think of what we should do here. Mr. Township Manager, how about we put the solicitor and our IT department together to put together the policy, and also see what they could find out about putting together the proper security.
Will do.
Great. Are there any commissioner committee updates?
Mr. President, Commissioner D'Amelio and I attended the last steering committee for the update of the comprehensive plan. We are just about, I think, at the end of, in 2 weeks, there'll be another meeting. We should at that point have the final draft. That draft will be made public. There will be at least a 45-day public comment period, and would anticipate then in May at the Planning Commission meetings that the public could attend that and further discussion at that point.
Remind the public of what that process looks like. It goes to the Planning Commission and then comes to us, or it goes somewhere else?
Right. It would, what we somewhat anticipate will happen is there probably will be, well, at least one, but probably 2 Planning Commission public meetings, so probably May and June. It would then come to us, most likely, we would not want it to come to us in August, but maybe in September. And the draft would come to us with the Planning Commission's comments and the public's comments, and we would vote on it at that point.
That is correct. We're hoping for September, actually, I think. We set dates, didn't we, Kelly?
Sat all the way down here because I didn't think I was gonna have to speak tonight. So we have tentative dates, depending on how much, if there's any other revisions that we feel like need to be made at the next meeting, but generally I think we're all pretty much on board with the current draft and just dotting some Ts and dotting some Is and crossing some Ts. So with that, we did talk about at least 30 days until the Planning Commission meeting after we distributed it to the public. It's definitely going to take more than one Planning Commission meeting. I don't think anybody thinks otherwise. That draft at that point isn't set in stone. After hearing comments from the public, comments from neighboring municipalities, the school district, the planning, county planning commission, we're able to change that draft. That's why it's a draft. So I think we are at this point aiming for September for the Board of Commissioners. But, you know, everything's kind of in flux, and we'll see where we are once we see how much, you know, input we get, how much comments we get, and if any of them are wildly different than what we're looking at, or in opposition, and maybe, you know, make some adjustments from there.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to provide a commissioner committee update? Chief, if you would provide the crime update.
There was no crime in Haverford Township for last month, so. The chief's report for February 2022, 15 criminal arrests, 4 juvenile arrests, 103 traffic citations, 17 non-traffic citations, 113 written warnings, and 372 parking tickets. No robberies, no burglaries, had an aggravated assault 400 block of Lanark Avenue, violent domestic, male on his girlfriend. He was charged with multiple crimes, simple assault, aggravated assault. 100 block, excuse me, 1300 block of Westchester Pike, a road rage alleged shooting. Police responded to a road rage incident involving a silver Chevrolet on the 2/17/22. The victim described cutting off a motorcycle at 500 block of Westchester Pike by mistake. Then in the area of Westchester Pike and Stanton, the offender was seen handling a handgun, and the victim thought he had heard a gunshot as he passed the offender. The victim nor his vehicle was hit by a bullet. The investigation is still ongoing. We had 10 attempts from vehicles, thefts and attempts. 300 block of Glengarry, 1400 block of Windsor Park, 2100 block of Chestnut, 2300 block of Chestnut. Once again, 1, 2, 3, 4 to 2100 block of Chestnut, and 1300 block of Westchester Pike at 400 Glendale, and we had 8 K9 usages. That's the report.
Chief, again, the traffic lights, where are we with those traffic lights? Have they been?
There is a
Fine,
great improvement. Our complaints have been minimal. I still see backups, but I personally, I just think it's volume. And I purposely travel the roads as much as I don't want to when I'm off duty, just to keep an eye on them, and I have officers checking them all the time. But have you, anyone?
I thought the Pike has been great. I thought it's worked
Don't get
well.
too carried away.
Not great,
Commissioner.
but compared to
There's been
about
improvement. There
Yeah, it
has.
is a big improvement.
compared to it's been. good.
Dave, and I think you'll back me up, but so our biggest concern is, once this is accepted by PennDOT, it becomes our responsibility. And that's what we're worried about. Now, remember, project started 2 years ago, Dave, or more?
It was in progress, I think, when I got here. They were
Okay.
just getting off the ground. So that's
And then
3
they
years.
wanted to turn it over to us, and we refused it. And then once we start really, with your help, and making a big stink over it, they found all these wiring problems.
Which they denied initially.
Yes, exactly right.
They denied it.
You're 100% correct. So we have been on it. We have a system in place now where multiple people are notified by email or phone call if needed to get it repaired. But I think we have probably shouldered a good deal of the cost of some of these repairs because, it's still an issue. So we're working through it, and I think it has improved greatly.
Oh, it has?
Yeah.
Now, thank you for your help with that. I know you were aggressive.
Absolutely. It annoyed me just as much as anybody else.
I know it did.
Yeah. So,
Especially when you heard from.
One other question. I've noticed there's been a lot of check fraud. Looks like
Oh, my,
checks taken
yes.
out of, are those, they're not taken out of mailboxes?
They are taken out of mailboxes.
They're out of mailboxes.
So at our last chiefs of police meeting, a postal inspector came to the meeting and explained what has been going on. There are multiple keys that are on the street. He said they have a lot of part-time delivery employees, mail people, and what they're hearing is that they're selling these keys for up to $5,000. So it was my understanding that the keys are, let's say, a 19083, 19082, so it covers the whole area. We had 2 or 3, I think, Joe, in the past couple of weeks, where they get the check, they wash it with acetone, and they cash it for, if it's a $200 check, it becomes a, $7,000 check. So it is a problem, and our recommendation is, and the postal inspector recommends the same thing. If you're going to mail anything, take it to the post office and put it inside. Because we had one mail right at Brookline and Darby. The person put it in there like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or close to it. It was a check to a local establishment. Found that it never made it, and then looked at the account and saw it was a large withdrawal.
I know residents are telling me they're checking their mailboxes late at night too.
Well, we don't
seen
see
that.
so much as that they are coming out of the regular drop mailboxes.
Is this a coordinated,
It's, it's just like the vehicle thefts.
Okay, that was
You
coordinated.
had this bunch, so there's a lot of money involved in it, Commissioner, when these checks are taken, so.
And how can you like even tell if the guy is there trying to take the stuff out because you think they're mailing stuff? So the police
Yeah.
can't stop and say, hey,
Yeah.
because there's no.
Mailmen, all the mailmen don't wear uniforms anymore. So
Yeah.
you don't
yeah,
know
but it
who's
is
there.
happening at night. They are checking residents. I saw it. They are checking
I don't doubt it.
residents'
I don't doubt it.
mailboxes
But sometimes it's
they're
tough,
out.
like
you
if
know.
you or I were to mail something.
That's different, but I'm talking about at night. Some people put their mail in their mailbox the night before, and you should not do that.
I wouldn't recommend it. So,
Don't do
Commissioners,
it
when you put
anymore.
out your alerts, if you could tell your constituents
Yep.
that when they mail anything, that to do it inside the post office. It's sad that they can't, that they've even gotten into mailboxes, so. And the Postal Service has changed the mailboxes, where before you can always reach inside.
Oh, yeah, you
Now
can
the
barely
new ones
get
have
in.
a small opening, but.
Yeah,
now
but
they
they're
got-
getting in there. They're using like sticky
Yeah,
things.
they got keys.
No, they also use,
Yeah,
I
I know.
saw the news,
Yep,
sticky
I agree. Yep.
Traps, like to pick up. the whole
And
kind of mail.
they've advised on what type of pens to use and stuff, because some pens can't be washed like other pens can, so.
Is your question?
Chief, I had a question. So is it still safe, just as a resident, is it still safe to mail your things from your own mailbox, like during the day, if you put it there and then get it picked up?
To put it in your own mailbox?
Yeah, like when you put it for the postal carrier to pick up.
Honestly, I don't trust the mail at all anymore. I would be hesitant to leave anything out because it is visible when you leave it there, depending on what kind of mailbox you have. So, I think in what we're going through in today's day and age, security is utmost important. So, I would just take the time to take it to the post office. Okay? Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Chief. Next on the agenda is a quick review of next week's agenda items. The first one will be a first reading of the single-use plastic regulations. They have been the subject of great thought and discussion on this board. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on this, on these regulations? I know that we're expecting to get some public comment next week on these. And so perhaps that's when folks will speak on the subject.
Go ahead, you go first.
Well, I have lots of issues with this.
Okay.
But get what is trying to be done here, but could we explore like ideas of promoting like the wild businesses around the town? Not to say, hey, like not give the bags or the straws, wait till they ask for them, like things like that. Rather than, I think the small businesses already been hit a lot over the last to just hit them again with something.
So I do think the straws are now available for anyone who asks. They are not, as I understand, they are not forbidden, but they are not to be just given out with every.
But that's the same thing, like if we, like the straw, so it's not straw ban, like the straw, the plastic straw will still be there. They won't say, hey, I have I have this and I can't use the other straws. So where does it like stop? Like somebody, it's not like an excuse. Like it's like so you or I could go up and say, hey, can I have a straw? And they will say yes because they can't say no because they can't ask you what
Right, so but I think the goal, when you think about, you go to a pizza place and there's 5 of you and somebody puts 5 straws on the table. And if you do that 200 covers a night and then you've got 1,000 straws. If you start with 0 and 1 or 2 people, you can make a difference. And,
And I agree, that's what I'm trying to ask, could we explore that for like a year and then have everybody not give straws away, because I see it every day where we don't give straws out, but they ask for straws.
Right. But I don't know if that applies to plastic bags. I think those are just banned.
If I may, let me just, of course, I expect you to come in harder on it. We had a meeting with our environmental committee and with a couple members of the environmental advisory committee. And the language is as follows. One, that we are banning plastic bags. We are asking for a 10-cent fee for paper bags. This is really to incentivize the idea that people begin using reusable bags. We are asking for a ban on plastic stirrers, and we are asking for again, that you can get plastic straws, but at the request. So I wanted to kind of lay out where the groundwork starts. What I would say is, as it relates to the plastic straws, we wanted to be very thoughtful again about how this would impact members of the community that are disabled. We wanted to be thoughtful about that, and at the same time, we wanted to make sure that people made a conscious effort behind that they made a choice that they needed a straw for whatever reason. Ultimately, purpose of this bill is to really address the issues around plastic waste. I regret that I don't have statistics right now, but we've read reports from the Darby Creek Valley Association. I mean, plastics are just flooding our waterways, and we have to do something to address this. And we've seen that 9 states, I believe, have passed this. We've seen local municipalities, Narberth, Westchester. We know that Radnor is currently considering language or considering moving forward on this. We've seen that it's possible. We've seen that, we're using best practices from other communities to make sure that it's not overly burdening our business community. But I welcome additional thoughts about, how we can make this work for our business community here and not make it too costly for you. We don't want to overburden you. But we think that this is possible based off what we've seen from other communities. Okay, come with the questions.
So last year, 640, thank you. Last year, 640,000 ton of fishing gear were dropped into the ocean every year. They're dropped into the ocean, so that affects the marine life. And over 1.5 million plastic bottles were collected from the coastline in 2016 was the year that this was written. So that's a lot of plastic bottles. And then about the marine life who are affected by the straws, the bottle caps are choking hazards for them too. So that's an issue. So like where do we like stop once we do this? And I get like this is a small piece, but it's like there's more. And the other thing was there's 4.5 trillion cigarette butts that are littered every year. So that's an issue too. Like it's.
I 100% agree.
Let's not do anything.
That's not what I'm saying.
You're saying, let's not do a thing to improve the environment.
Well, then we have to do,
That's what you're
do
saying.
a lot. Then we have to do.
Bottom line is, that's what you're saying. Let's not do a thing. The hell with the environment. Let it happen.
that's not what
Listen,
I'm saying.
There's no doubt that there are other improvements that this country can make as far as the environment and plastics. There's no doubt about it. But what you're not stating is that plastics are getting into marine life, which are getting into us as humans. That's happening. There are traces of plastics in human beings. And if we don't start to do something about it, we're in trouble.
And does this plastic bag every third or every week we see at the end of our driveways are those coupon things, and then I see those bags are in and out of the street. So does this impact them? too? Will this stop them? Because everybody who gets on their list to say that I don't want this brought to my house anymore, drop off, that's a bunch of, well, they're still having them dropped out, because that's the emails I get are saying, how do I get off of this list?
And I think Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we discuss this before, this issue of those plastics, and they said that residents can opt out to have them delivered?
Yeah, I remember that was the delivery of those coupon packages.
Yeah.
I don't know how effective the do not
It's not.
drop in my driveway list were in
Well,
those.
but we did do that. I mean, you have to, should they be banned? Probably, yeah. Because on a windy day, obviously, they blow around.
Yeah.
They end up in trees, they end up on people's properties. I mean, it's just,
I assume does our ordinance address the plastic bags that newspapers are delivering?
Yes, it does. It recommends not having them.
So it recommends it, or it
It says that. It bans it.
bans them? Okay, and okay.
Judy, I have a question. I think when Narberth instituted their ban, they exempted state stores and the post office. What's the legal ramifications there?
Well, there are some potential sovereignty issues when you're trying to tell the federal government or state government what you're trying to do. As a solicitor for Narberth Borough at that time, it was decided not to look into that issue, but to provide for that exemption for that purpose. So that issue hasn't been decided, or I've not looked into that issue yet, but that was the reason for that exemption in Narberth.
And at this point, I'm just wondering if there should be an exemption put, if we don't want to have this go to court, if we don't defend this, if we should put that exemption in or not.
That was discussed when we had the committee meeting, and the concept was that we're trying to follow best practices in terms of uniformity with the other municipalities that have passed this. And if the state or federal government were going to file some sort of suit, it would be against all of them at once, rather than trying to spell out specific exemptions within our ordinance. Just have it consistent with what other municipalities in the area have done. And if the state and federal government decide to sue all of us, that's something that's going to happen regardless of whether we have an exception or not.
Well, it wouldn't happen, I mean, we wouldn't be sued if you had an exemption for the state store. The state is not going to be suing us. I'm just trying to
I mean,
clarify.
the thought was we didn't want to overly complicate our ordinance, and that eventually I think there was a belief expressed that over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, it's not going to go in the area where there's going to be more plastic bags throughout the Commonwealth, that there's going to be more ordinances just like this, and that the state's going to have to address it on their end. And if anything, more and more municipalities doing this encourages the state and federal government to take their own action to eliminate their use of plastic bags.
Just to be clear, the ordinance exempts newspaper bags.
I literally was just gonna say that, yeah. I read it wrong, I'm sorry.
do we know what other municipalities are doing for that, Judy? The newspaper bag?
I think most municipalities also are exempting newspaper bags.
Are they?
Just because of the legitimate newspapers, not the coupons, but
Right.
a newspaper thrown on your porch, you need to keep it dry. I believe that there are form ordinances that are being circulated throughout the Commonwealth now that a lot of municipalities are using as a base. And I believe that's what this ordinance actually was from Environmental Advisory Committee, from Penn Environment and other organizations are having recommended ordinances to work from. So there's a lot of the same consistent exemptions in the ordinances throughout the Commonwealth.
They really should do away with it. They really should. When I was a kid, I delivered the Bolden. We didn't have plastic bags back then. We just put the paper on the step.
Can I ask, what's the rationale, laundry and dry cleaner bags? Why are we exempting those? They're more dangerous to our children and pets than the turtles. But, if you're gonna, I don't know, what's the rationale for exemption there? They could be wrapped in paper as opposed to plastic.
Well, first, you can see the clothes.
You can what?
So you can see the clothes through the laundry bag.
Right,
when
they don't
it's
put them
clean.
in until you go there, they hang them, then you just bring it down after you.
I'm saying, then you get them home clean, you leave them in the plastic and put them in your closet, and then they stay clean until you use them.
And most
You
people,
can see them.
most people take them and recycle them, put them in the recycle bin. It's not like a bag that you would use outside. You take it home.
You rip it off. And a kid sucks it in his face, or a dog gets in it, and, I mean, it's got, we're saving the environment, let's save our children too.
You got stats on how many children die from suffocation of putting dry cleaning bags in their mouth?
I've been on ambulance calls, but that's happened, yeah.
Well, you could be on ambulance call for trash bags too. I mean, or getting in the refrigerator. I mean, so do nothing. I mean, you can die from anything.
I think this has veered in a direction that is no longer productive. But is there anybody else who has any thoughts or comments on this ordinance?
I just think this could be considered to be this overreach by some people, and because we exempt this and then we don't exempt this, who's to say what we can exempt and who's to say what we can't exempt? I just think that we're regulating things, and to quote a good friend of mine, Larry Holmes, for what he said during the smoking ban. He said it's our job to protect the people from the majority. So
The tyranny of the majority.
Yes,
is
that's
the
what you said,
expression I
and
used.
that's what
Thank
I'm
you.
trying to do here in a way, and just wanted to put that up.
Yeah, look,
Well,
it
I
is
don't
a
think
fa- it
tyranny
is
has
a-
broken out because of the smoking in the park ban, but that's just my reaction to it. And I think Commissioner D'Amelio's point initially is well taken, that this, most of the arguments against this is, well, why aren't you doing this as opposed to that, or why are you doing this? We're doing something that is beneficial to the environment, and we're doing something that's trying to do something good. And it's not perfect, and there's going to be problems along the way, but this is a step in the right direction, and I think it's one that is worthwhile to take.
And there is, you can justify the exceptions that are put in this. Bags for your groceries aren't left on your porch overnight or delivered there at 5 o'clock in the morning and sit there till you wake
That's my
up.
point.
And that's what you need that for a newspaper. Laundry bags and dry cleaner bags have a very specific purpose and don't get thrown out of car windows or dropped by somebody after they've taken whatever it is out of the bag. But we have alternatives to plastic stirrers, and that's wooden stirrers, and they're environmentally sound. And reusable bags for plastic bags and paper bags, which we can pay for.
Too, I read that the glue on there can be damaged and can't biodegrade and stuff like that.
We should ban Elmer's glue so kids don't eat that either.
Yeah, no,
I
but
mean,
that's-
come on. Come on.
So we can,
When's the last time you saw a kid eating a trash bag or a paper bag with glue on it? I mean,
Hey,
wait.
Dave, where is my gavel? You go get me it? Yeah.
So, yeah,
All right,
I did a lot of.
at the risk
Of looking into this
going
stuff.
around and around again, does anybody else have anything intelligent to add to the discussion about single
can't-
stirrers and plastic bags?
I can't guarantee it will be intelligent, but I will say, I think you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and this is a step in the
Another
right
expression, I love
direction. And there's no doubt we can make an impact, and there's no doubt, really, I think it can be a difficult transition for people, but I think it's happening so often. More of the comments that I've gotten are about, why haven't we done this sooner? So to me, as a township, the more we can do to support the business community as we go through this transition, whether it's funding some reusable bags or, just helping raise awareness. I don't think we want to be immune to the business community's concerns. But at the same time, I think this is a really important step forward. So I thank you all for putting it together.
Well, that was quite intelligent, and it's a good one to end on. But we have plenty of time next week to discuss this again, as we will be inviting public comment, and there may be reactions to that. The second ordinance is a traffic ordinance. Does anyone have anything to say about that? It's special purpose parking on 721 Howard Ave. I don't even know what word that is. The next item, sorry, I left my agenda. The next item on the agenda is the pension and employee benefits, which we already passed last month. Is that correct? We have another ordinance, ordinance number P5, another traffic ordinance. And sorry, let me go back to the agenda. And then we have two resolutions, and we will also have two more, which I'll address in a minute. We have a resolution for the highway use agreement for Westchester Pike, right of entry for landscape installation and maintenance. Dave, anything to tell us about that?
Tree tenders. We'll be installing some trees along the median in Westchester Pike, and we'll be working with them.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Larry, can I bring something up about Westchester Pike? I mean, I know I do this every meeting, and I apologize. But again, Dave Benoni, anything new on the Westchester Pike improvements?
There was a stakeholders meeting. I think it was last month, if I remember correctly. PennDOT laid out, invited all the township officials, Marple and Haverford, laid out a tentative schedule. If I remember correctly, that tentative schedule has the potential bidding at the end of 2022. There is one difficult challenge going on right now. SEPTA is being very adamant about their bus route and accommodating their bus traffic and trying to work through those issues right now. The state of Pennsylvania and SEPTA are trying to work through those issues right now. They're ongoing, and they're not de minimis.
How would it hurt the SEPTA bus route?
They're concerned about how the rerouting of the traffic down there around 476 can affect their bus. I forget what.
There's a couple of stops, at least one stop that would be affected by where they're going to be trying to manipulate these lanes and put in the delineators.
Well, let's hope that they don't delay this for one stop. That's, to me, is ridiculous. SEPTA needs to be.
That's probably the biggest issue that came out from I believe, that's probably
Yes,
the biggest issue that
I
came
agree.
out of that meeting.
Well, we need support then from our state reps and state senators that, you know what? One stop should not prevent an improvement that really needs to happen.
I don't disagree.
The
The latest
residents in
report I
every
got
ward
today was
that-
very
that-
encouraging.
In
But
this
I agree with
township,
you.
that especially those that, even in the second ward where it backs up all the way to Manoa School. I mean, Sacred Heart. And your ward, you can't even get out sometimes over there. So one stop should not prevent this from happening. We need a voice. We need somebody to say that. Because
We're
once
now
they get
moving
past
on.
that, it's all highway until you get into Broomall.
I think it's fair to say.
The first stop's probably New Ardmore Road, right?
It's
The
fair to
next
say
stop.
PennDOT's a pretty big advocate of trying to get this done.
Who?
PennDOT,
Good.
big advocate of trying. I think that's fair to say.
Well, I mean, obviously, it was bad. Very bad. It's bad. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. The next resolution, 2256, the 2022 liquid fuels allocation. Mr. Berman, anything on that? Or Ms. Cuthbertson?
Or I can give you just a little tidbit on that. It's an annual allocation we get from the county. This is the county liquid fuels, not the state liquid fuels. So each year the county gets an allocation and divides that among its member municipalities, and our allocation for 22 is around 55,000, the amount that's noted in the resolution. We have to adopt the resolution, and that's how we officially apply for the aid.
Thank you. We also have two other resolutions that are not on this agenda right now, but will be considered by this board next week. Madam Vice President?
Yeah, so Commissioner Cavender, Commissioner Forstu Grupp, and I work together to develop a resolution which we hope to introduce next week. This will be both recognizing Women's History Month and the accomplishments that women have made throughout the nation's history, but also really diving into how the township can work to both attract and retain female or women employees. So I'll look forward to talking about it more then.
And as that, when that resolution is fully drafted, it will be circulated among all the commissioners and the solicitor. And we also have another resolution.
Next week, we will be presenting a resolution in support of Ukraine and the people of Ukraine in the light of the invasion there. It'll be similar to what the Delaware County Council passed at their meeting earlier this month.
Great, we will look forward to seeing that as well. The next two things on the item, on the agenda are contract awards. One is for the Haverford Road, Hathaway Lane pedestrian improvements. That is something very near and dear to my heart. And the Lanark Park ADA pedestrian access. Mr. Berman, do you mind giving 30 seconds on the Haverford Road, Hathaway Lane pedestrian improvements?
Haverford Road, Hathaway Lane pedestrian improvements have been designed. They've gone to bid. This is to improve the crossing at Lorraine, Haverford, Hathaway, and the bus route, which is a dangerous intersection where people cross at various points, and we're trying to consolidate them. Pannoni did the design for us, and we should have the bid results in the next couple of days.
Excellent, thank you very much. I know the neighbors there are looking forward very much to those improvements. Lanark Park, ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, pedestrian access.
This was a project that was bid last year, came in well over budget, and we had hoped to go back out for bid sometime in the fall. We're a little behind schedule, but those bids will be coming in very shortly as well. This is for accessibility to the playground area.
And does anybody have any questions for our township manager on these contracts? Now we move to purchases, Public Works Department equipment. We purchased from a 902 recycling grant. Parks and Recreation will be purchasing playground equipment for Powder Mill Park and replacement LED lights for the Community Recreation and Environmental Center. And the Bureau of Fire, new, and I don't know what this is, ESO software for 5 Township.
ESO is the name of the vendor.
Oh, is it? Okay. Mr. Wexler, since you are the,
In a nutshell, this is software that tracks our fire reporting software that we report up to the county and the state. It also tracks all activities for firemen, training, personnel management system, and also includes the data migration from the current system to the new one. We're forced to do this because there has been mergers the three major companies that the state accepts these reports from electronically, from the county and from the municipalities, have merged, so that we're kind of under the gun to do this, but this is the one that does everything that we need to do for the township, tracks the personnel records. We talk about looking at our statistics. You can do it on a spreadsheet and then have everything manual, or you can do it like this. This is the way that most municipalities are going, or almost all, and this is the system that has been evaluated and vetted. Our neighbors, Upper Merion uses it, some other municipalities. It's an all-inclusive one to replace the NIFRS system that we use currently, the National Fire Incident Reporting System that we use, and this will allow us to export that into this new system and bring our people back up online and track our training, which we need to present to the insurance regulation industry. So it's an important thing for the township that we track all this, because it affects all our homeowners insurance throughout the township with the reporting that we do.
Mr. Wexler, thank you for a very informative explanation of that. We move to appointments. There are still 2 appointments left on the Senior Citizens Advisory Board. I am prepared to do one, which I believe I can do tonight, since that's not a board appointment, but simply a commissioner appointment. Ward 1, Mr. D'Amelio, do you have an appointment?
Yes, Carla Rogers
And
served, in I think in the last year. Is willing to do it again.
I am Ward 6. I am appointing Teresa Walter, who will take on her first assignment on the Senior Citizens Advisory Board. Thank you for volunteering to serve. Now, we don't typically invite other business, but if anybody is really dying to say something, now is the time. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Commissioner?
Yes.
I just wanted to remind the public that we, on Thursday, March the 10th, will be having a United with Ukraine music rally, if you will. It will be at Paddock Park, which is located at West Hillcrest Avenue. Individuals are invited to, this is a musical performance created by the Kelly Center for Arts, Music, and Community. And they will be, again, providing live musical performances, hopefully some powerful words from some of our local leaders. Individuals are encouraged to bring their lawn chairs, bring signs of peace, and if they're willing to bring a donation for the United Ukraine American Rescue Committee. Again, March 10th, 5 p.m. at Paddock Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Trombetta, and thank you for your significant efforts in putting that event together. If there is nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.